Yo, what is going on YouTube? I am Germ here. So we are now getting ready to get into day 2 of Worlds after what was a very unsuccessful day 1 of Worlds for North America specifically, but also the West. Obviously, EU did get a win, but their only win was over NA, who is 0-3 at the tournament. Obviously, G2 got smacked around pretty good by Damwon Kia. So the West still looking for their first win over a non-NA/EU team, but obviously things went much worse for North America specifically, since they played 3 games. They went 0-3. Only one of them was even relatively close, but even by the end of that game, Evil Geniuses still ended up losing by like 10,000 gold or something like that. It was just really crazy. But more so today, I want to talk specifically about Cloud9 because a lot of talk has been about them and their draft in this game. And whenever you're talking about Cloud9 and whenever you're talking about drafts specifically pertaining to Cloud9, it's like you have Cloud9, you have draft, you put them together, you get C9 drafts. The conversation is always going to come back to LS. And that's what I want to talk about a little bit in this video today. Mostly just talking about Worlds and the NA teams and that stuff, but relating it to the whole LS situation a little bit because we did have some tweets regarding that. But yeah, so obviously C9, they ended up losing their game. We can take a look at this is what the post game was for them against Fnatic. This was the first game of Worlds, NA against EU. This is coming off the 3-0 of Evil Geniuses over Mad Lion. So, hey, NA's feeling themselves a little bit. They're getting hyped up. They're ready to go. Even though Fnatic already took down EG. So, Fnatic, they weren't part of that 0-3. Fnatic, they're undefeated against NA so far. They're feeling themselves. They're looking good, too. And in this game, it was a banger. It was back and forth. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of just a big slugfest going on, you know. Sven was able to pick up 2 early kills, one in the bot lane, one in the top lane. Things looked like they were going okay for C9. We had kind of like a mid lane skirmish where Jensen went in, tried to get a big pick onto Razork. He doesn't get it. That ends up costing him like his whole health bar and really the whole lane phase. Humanoid was able to take that advantage and really kind of snowball it out of control. But the biggest thing that happened in this game was the Fnatic composition. The Ornn ult, the Maokai ult, and the Renata Glasc ult took up the entire screen. You had one from here, one from here, one from here, and they just used flanks and vision control. Obviously, when you have Maokai, the vision control and stuff gets a lot easier. You just got saplings all over the place. You're sweeping. You got pink wards. Fnatic just used their ability to flank and control vision and use these massive AoE ults to absolutely like pincer Cloud9. Cloud9 also, of course, had more of like a split pushing composition, you know, with like a Fiora and a LeBlanc, one to get out into side lanes and stuff like that. And then they would find these isolated clumps of members and they would just really take advantage of it. Also, I know Fnatic got a couple of dragons. They kind of forced C9 to have to come into them at the Drakes. And overall, just with how easy Fnatic's comp looked to pull off, even from like a somewhat like even game state, like C9 needed to be very far ahead if they were going to be able to win this game. But from an even game state and even an ahead game state like Fnatic was in, all they had to do was press R, and it was just really simple, really easy. They were able to get this win. Now C9 had moments. There was the fight around Drake, where Fnatic looked like they had a really advantageous fight. C9 comes back in the fight a little bit. Jensen picks up a couple kills. That was about as good as it got for C9, unfortunately, because one of the biggest critiques was not only like, hey, how the heck are you supposed to play against this Fnatic like deathball comp of these insane like go button press R champs, but also how are you supposed to kill Ornn and Maokai with a Fiora and a LeBlanc and a Misfortune? Like you just don't have the damage. And even the Misfortune, like, yeah, that's your AD carry or whatever. She's not a huge DPS AD carry, but even her ult, like the full Misfortune ult on the Maokai is just like shaking that off like it's nothing. They're also able to get like Anathema's chains, which they could put on, you know, any damage dealer they were concerned about, get even more tanky. C9 just ultimately did not have enough damage or the right composition to deal with Fnatic specifically. And then you still had Upset like perma chilling. I mean, Upset's 8-0 behind an Ornn and a Maokai and a Renata ult. Like Upset was really never even put under pressure or duress in this game. And even if it would have been a little bit closer of a game, you still had your massive Aphelios there who's going to be able to carry these late game fights. So overall, people weren't necessarily, I don't think, like too critical about C9's play. I think there were some criticisms about Jensen maybe getting gapped a little bit in the mid lane, but I don't know. He tried to make a play. He came up short, and then that allowed Humanoid to get a massive advantage off of that. It wasn't like just in the 1v1, like Humanoid was like straight up shitting on Jensen or anything like that. So I don't know. I don't read too much into that. I also think some people were critical of Fudge and his Fiora play, saying, he should have been able to get more of an advantage over the Ornn. C9 as a team should have been able to snowball that more. And yeah, I think that is probably fair, especially because we ended up seeing the Zeus for T1 Fiora against Ornn and just absolutely smashing him and running the game over. But yeah, I don't know. And then it just sucked because we had 100 Thieves in the game later on where they end up picking the Fiora as well. That doesn't go well. They also have the Sejuani. That doesn't go well. They lose to Flying Oysters. Then we have EG that actually came out with like a decent looking draft. They had actually some strong champions. The Varus is looking very, very strong right now. They had a Victor and a Graves, and they were close in this game. Now, hey, Viego goes 12-1. He snowballs out of control. They end up losing, but EG at least had some moments. But what I did think was interesting and funny after this whole thing was Berserker, because he was talking a lot about the draft. He said in his post-match scrum interview that I have uploaded on my channel, you guys go check it out, he said something along the lines of, hey, our draft wasn't very good, and I didn't really love our draft, but I still thought, hey, if we play well, the game was winnable. So he thought their draft was bad, but he also thought they didn't play their best either. He doesn't think Fnatic is like unbeatable or anything like that, and he thinks even with maybe not the best draft in the world, they should still be able to beat Fnatic. So he was pretty disappointed, but obviously he thinks the draft was a big issue because he talked about it in his interviews, and he also tweeted this out after the game. He said C9 draft ... And then hilariously enough, you have Summit chiming in. FPX Summit, I guess he's a free agent now. He's not, I don't know, his contract's about to run out with FPX. Who knows where Summit's going to end up next year. There has been some talks of him potentially wanting to return back to the West, whether that be NA or EU or whatever. But he tweeted out LS and then some Korean words. I didn't know what it was, so I had to translate it. And he says, bring LS. And this is just absolutely hilarious because we knew that this was going to be a story the whole year. And honestly, I think that LS and his fans haven't been as riled up, and they've kind of quieted down and stuff, especially after C9 won the LCS championship. So I'm not like saying this is a big issue or anything. I'm just saying it's funny. And if C9 ends up bombing out, you absolutely could have some more of that. That crowd could get a little bit louder and stuff, but. Dating back to when LS and C9 had their breakup, obviously a lot of the LS fans and a lot of people in general are just very, very mad and upset. And they're saying, C9 is going to suck. You're going to be screwed without LS. Even if, you do a little bit better in the LCS, you're never going to be good internationally if you don't have good drafts, you don't have good coaching, all that stuff. But then C9 went on a good run. They looked really, really strong in summer. They end up winning the title 3-0, and they end up coming in as the number 1 NA seed into Worlds. But now, just after one single game where they had, again, what people are saying is a very, very bad draft. They're not saying that this team isn't talented enough. They're not saying this team isn't good enough. They're not saying that this team at their best can't beat Fnatic, but they need a good strategy. They need a good style. They need a good draft. And then you have Summit, chiming in saying, hey, you should have brought LS. And I just thought this was really, really funny. And then, Berserker, he tweets out, I guess this Pepe, I don't even know which one this is, but I just thought it was funny overall. And I do think it kind of begs the question of if C9 had an LS draft in this game, would they have been able to take down Fnatic? Is Fnatic just better than them? But I think it's also going to come up more so in the other games when they start to play against some of the stronger teams. If T1 and EDG do end up being better than C9 and Fnatic, I think that's expected, but hopefully C9 and Fnatic can put up a good fight against those other teams. If C9 has more bad drafts or if they just end up getting rolled over by T1 and EDG, the question's going to be, hey, if we had better drafts, if we had a better strategy, if we had better coaching, would we maybe be able to stand up toe-to-toe more so against some of these other teams? And then I think people take those same ideas and extrapolate them out to the other LCS teams as well, and even the other Western teams. Did people, I don't know, I didn't necessarily love G2's draft. I know that G2 ended up kind of being relevant in a couple fights later in the game after they were down like 15,000 gold. A lot of people were critical about 100 Thieves draft. I don't know, all this stuff. But at the end of the day, C9 LS is a story that's not going away quite yet. I thought it was very, very funny that Summit, chimed in here, especially because from what we heard, Summit and Berserker were some of the players who weren't necessarily super excited about having to play all these different weird styles and strategy champions and stuff. They wanted to play what they thought was best. They wanted to play the normal meta. That's what you do over in Korea for the most part. But yeah, I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. Obviously, very, very sad day for North America, starting out 0-3. The question is, could LS have changed things? Would C9 have been better off if LS was there? Would they be sitting 1-0 with a nice dub over EU, nice dub over Fnatic at this point? I don't know, but I do at least think it's a nice question. Obviously, it sucks for C9 to have a bad draft. ever against any of these teams, but you really don't want to have a bad draft against Fnatic because that's the games, that's supposed to be like the easy games in the group. Hopefully they can turn things around. We will have to see if Fnatic or if C9 learns from this game, if they have better drafts later on, if they play better, if they're able to pick up any wins in this very, very tough group. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but I'm hoping NA gets on the board with their first win sooner rather than later. But that's pretty much it for this video today, guys. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about anything we talked about in this video today. Subscribe to up to date and all my latest content. Hopefully, catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.